Okay, great. So yeah, first of all, I want to thank Attila and Ed and the entire SBDA Association for inviting us to speak at the event, and being the first speakers of the year is it's an honor for us. So we're happy to do it. And again, we'd like to thank the Northwest Territories, the government services that are available, and the mining incentive program for kind of funding and facilitating our ability to go up into the territories and make this happen. So I just want to extend the gratitude towards those two parties. And yeah, so this is the Olympus Gold Project. And so it was started in 2019 by myself and Brayden through the mining incentive program, which is one of the bursaries we took advantage of offered by the Northwest Territories. And then we continued it in 2020 with the addition of Florent. And we're going to kind of go through, call it the corporate presentation side of things, giving you an overview of the actual project itself. And Brayden's going to go over some technical terms and kind of aspects about the property. And then we'll go through some pictures and kind of give you an idea of what it's like up there. And then any questions you have about any government services offered or any questions about the funding, please feel free to ask us. And, if we can't answer those questions, then we will provide the resource to, to people who can. So, so yeah. So a bit of background about myself, and then Braden St Pierre and Florent Pons. So, I hold a Bachelor of Science with honors from Carleton University in Environmental and Earth Sciences. And then I'm not actually done my MSc yet, but I am completing it through Laurentian University. And I kind of started my career in geoscience with the Ontario Geological Survey in 2015. So I did a summer mapping program with the OGS, and then I transitioned to Goldterra, who funded my master's program. And I did a couple of years up in the Northwest Territories on the Yellowknife City Gold Project through Goldterra. And then following that, I went to Pure Gold on the Madsen project, which just had their first gold pour, so that's exciting. But yeah, I was a project geologist for them on their surface exploration program. And then I was working for Orion in Finland, actually with Brayden. And that's kind of been my last stint in the industry. So I'm just going to let Brayden give a brief description about himself, and then Flo, and then we can get into the presentation.
Perfect. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thanks again, Attila and Ed, for the opportunity. Much appreciated. Yeah. So my name is Braden St Pierre. I hold a bachelor degree in Earth Science and Resource Economics from Carleton University. I'm still completing my master's. I started back in 2017, which is a TGI-5 sponsored project by the GSC in conjunction with Agnico Eagle Mines. I'm studying the Meliadine district, in particular the Tiriginiac deposit, which is a partly BIF-hosted orogenic gold deposit. So I'm studying the structural and lithological controls on gold mineralization. Because of that, I've been able to contribute to a number of publications on BIF-hosted gold, including a number of publications in TGI-5 project synthesis, and also additionally, I'm co-author of an ongoing field-based PhD study in Southwest Tanzania. And yeah, since 2019, I've been a part of a couple kind of exploration projects, one in Nova Scotia called the Sugarloaf Prospect, and this one in Northwest Territories. And I've been able to acquire approximately $80,000 in government funding for these activities. And like Drake said, yeah, we're both working in Finland. I've been there for almost 2 years, and yeah, that's about it from me.
Hi everyone. So for a quick biography, my name is Florent Pons. I'm a field geologist. I moved in Canada in 2010, just after I completed my bachelor degrees in geoscience. And I worked in the north of Quebec for the first 4 years in various projects, many green, like from greenfield to advanced project. Then after that, I moved in 2014 in BC to work for a large consultant company in exploration, and I had the opportunity to work in Yukon and in Ontario. I worked for the Matson project for around over 3 years. And now since 2019, I'm working for New Gold in New Afton in Kamloops. That's what I'm doing right now. And last year I had the great opportunity to jump on the exciting adventures with Drake and Brayden, and it's been great so far. It was a lot of work, and it's a really fun project. Yeah, that's about it, my small story.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Okay, so getting into the Olympus project itself. So we just kind of gave an outline slide here of where the property actually is relative to other properties around it. So we're about 350 kilometers northeast of Yellowknife. And as you can see, the Colemak project right here, which is run by Nighthawk Gold, and then the Yellowknife City Gold project run by Goldterra Resources, and then the Seabridge's Courageous Lake deposit is right around here. And then to the northeast of us, we have the Izok Lake deposit, and then the past producing Lupin gold mine. And so the Olympus project it's a district scale, 100% owned, 12,500 hectare property of continuous mineral claims. There's 17 historical gold showings, and then 1 new showing discovered during the 2019 field season by Braden and myself. It is the largest land package staked in the Slave Craton in 2020, and the largest precious metals exploration project staked in the entire Northwest Territories in 2020. It hosts multiple styles of gold mineralization. These include banded iron formation hosted, shear and stockwork veins hosted within turbidites, and then shear and vein hosted in tonalite basement complex. And we are 90 kilometers away from the past producing Lupin gold mine, and they produced about 3.4 million ounces. And we have a very similar style mineralization to the banded iron formation that was mined at Lupin. So this is a map that was created by the Northwest Territories Geological Survey. And really the main kind of indicator of this map is the mineral potential matrix. So in the legend on the left, you could see a scale going from 25 to 100, 100 being the highest mineral potential matrix that they created. And so this is really just to highlight the fact that the Olympus project is within one of the highest potential mineral matrix within the Slave Craton. This area right here in the bottom left-hand corner, that is the Colemak deposit, so the one operated by Nighthawk Gold. And then we have on the far right-hand side or the east side of the map, the Acadie mine, Divik mine, and so you could see, those are outlined in red, showing the high prospectivity of that area. And then the Olympus project, which is kind of right in the center of a very high mineral potential area. Another thing to note with this map is this road. It's a proposed road right now, but it is the Slave Geological Access Corridor. And so this is an all-weather road. It's 413 kilometers in total length, and it's proposed to run basically through the heart of the Slave Craton to open up the north in terms of exploration and basically access to kind of stimulate the activity up there. The federal government, I believe they contributed $40 million, and then the territorial government contributed another 10 or 20 million, and so they're doing environmental assessment on that right now. And they're going to construct it in 3 segments, and that will be a huge boost to the availability and the access of the north. Yeah, and which is important because mining and exploration contributes to about 20% of the total economic activity in the Northwest Territories, with a majority of that economic activity happening within the Slave Craton. Additionally, the territorial government flew a geophysical survey. So it was a high-resolution geophysical survey, and it was actually flown over the Point Lake area and the surrounding area. So these are kind of some things that outline the commitment that the territorial government has to increasing economic activity and exploration access within the north. And just a brief overview or a brief comment about the Olympus project itself. So we have 18 gold occurrences, and then we have a pre-43-101 estimate of 121,000 ounces of gold at 6.86 grams per ton. And this is at the Tree prospect, which we'll go to in the next slide. And it was drilled and postulated by Giant Mines Yellowknife in the 60s and 80s. Oh, before we get to that, this is a land size comparison just of other operating exploration companies kind of within the territories and then within the vicinity of us. So Rover Metals, it's 110 kilometers northwest of Yellowknife. They have a market cap of $7.7 million, and you can see their land package here. Blue Star Gold Corp, similar geology to what we have. They have a market cap of $19.2 million, and this is their total land package. And then, you know, we have the Olympus project, which is a larger land package and very prospective rocks. And so this is kind of giving a kind of a value, or, you know, a potential value to our neighboring exploration companies in the area. Then a history of work for the Olympus project itself. So work started in this area in the 1960s, and this was completed by Echo Bay Mines, which is now Kinross Gold. So, you know, it's a significant player in the game. And then Giant Yellowknife Mines. This is where they discovered two of the main showings, the Wren and the Tree showing. And work kind of continued through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And this was done by Cominco in joint venture with Westview Resources. Texas Gulf was in there, and so they were doing, you know, prospecting, sampling, trenching, and drilling programs. And in 2000 and 2010, it was picked up by Novus Gold, and Novus Gold did a pretty massive exploration project on the Point Lake area, and they did a ton of drilling, and the project seemed to be going very well, but they were actually picked up by a company called Pantera Gold for their asset in the Dominican Republic. And so Pantera wasn't really interested in taking on the Point Lake project that Novus had. And so it went back into Mike Magram's name, and he kind of, I'm assuming, sat on it until about 2017, where the claims lapsed. And then in 2018, 2019, Braden and I started taking note of the area and looking at all the historical showings and, you know, all the open land in that area. And that's when we decided to use the mining incentive program, you know, as I mentioned, offered through the NWT Geological Survey, to kind of do our initial exploration program in this area. And so we did a 16-day preliminary exploration program. We staked 4 mineral claims. Everything was by foot and tenths at that point. We discovered a new gold showing, and we kind of utilized the high-resolution geophysical survey flown over the area. And then in 2020, Florent joined the team. We completed another 14-day exploration program, again funded through MIP. And we consolidated the land package by staking the 19 additional claims. And since that field season from this summer, we did a comprehensive historic data compilation to kind of emphasize the potential of a Tier 1 discovery within the Point Lake area. So this is the project geology on a kind of a regional high-level overview. On the right-hand side, anything encompassed within this black boundary is part of the Olympus project, with the exception of this blue boundary right here, which is a third-party lease owned by the original owners of Novus Gold. And then on the left-hand side here, we have the Geophysical Survey. So this is the tilt derivative version. And this is just kind of showing the level of detail that we can utilize within this area. Anything you see in a star is a historical showing. And of note is the tree showing right here. So this is the pre-43-101 estimate, where there's been a number of drill holes. I believe it's 16 drill holes to date. And then the Wren also has a pre-43-101 estimate on it. And the Grizz showing up here is the thought to be the potential extension of that showing. So this is the distribution of showings within our property. You can see they're localized around the banded iron formation, which is interpreted and outlined here in gray, and as well as along this fault system here, which is termed Fubar Faults. So this is a large crustal scale fault, which is kind of a red flag architecture for orogenic gold deposits. And so you can see there's some showings along there. And then we have over in the west side of the property here, this is the tonalite basement complex, which is kind of its own style of mineralization. And there's pretty significant gold, silver, and base metal grades here. And yeah, we'll kind of talk about that a little later on. So we're going to zoom into the tree prospect here. And this is, again, where the 121,000 ounces of gold at 6.86 grams per ton was inferred through Giant Mines Yellowknife. They did 16 drill holes, but we were only able to recover 8 of those holes. We have the color locations from their maps. We have the downhole logging and assays all within our historical database. So we're, excuse me, we're pretty confident about the, the grades and where they intercepted mineralization. So some highlights from there is 7.03 gram per ton over 7.3 meters, 9.26 grams per ton over 4.3 meters. And, the idea is that it's open in all directions because through the interpretation we've created in the mag, right here on the left-hand side is where those drill holes are. And this is where the interpreted banded iron formation is proximal to it. So there is a lot of potential to expand on that resource, and it is open in all directions. So that is one of our high priority targets for this area. So we're going to jump to the north end of the property now, and this is the Grizz target resource extension. So as mentioned before, the Wren did have a resource, and again, this is within leased land, but it's 252,000 ounces at 6.5 gram per ton, pre-43-101 estimate. And the Grizz area is the proposed extension. Kaminko and Westview Resources in the 1990s proposed that the Grizz was the actual extension of the Wren deposit. And they did do some drilling at Grizz, and some of the highlights from there was 2.22 grams per ton over 18 meters, including 5.06 grams per ton over 5.64 meters. And again, there's multiple untested fold hinges and limbs within the area that could host significant gold mineralization. So this is giving an overview of the entire property for highlights. This is the tree area, so we've already covered that. And then we have Lolo Lake, Camp Lake, and Tambi. So in terms of grab samples, 9.2 gram per ton, 4.2, 32.9 gram per ton at Tambi. Banner is 205 gram per ton gold. And then at Grizz, we went over what was there. Going over to along that crustal scale fault, the Fubar Fault, 22.4 grams per ton at Flag, 17.4 grams per ton at Gord, and the actual Fubar Fault showing 10.2 grams per ton. And then getting over to the VIN, the tonalite hosted complex mineralization. So that's 180.6 grams per ton gold at 38 grams per ton silver, 19.9 grams per ton gold at 725 grams per ton silver, and then one of the screamers, 1,487 grams per ton silver with 5.6 grams per ton gold. We were able to check this area out a little bit, but it was late in the day and late in the season when we got over there, so unfortunately we couldn't do a lot of follow-up work on that area, but certainly interesting nevertheless. So this slide is showing the footprint of the high-resolution geophysical survey flown by the Northwest Territories Geological Survey in 2019. So it's a massive survey, obviously, and it is high resolution. So there's line spacings at 100 meter east-west, control line spacings at 600 meter north-south, and they're flying at a 60-meter drape. And their total line kilometers was 64,787. And the products include a first vertical derivative, total magnetic field, tilt derivative, digital elevation model, and analytical signal. And then this is the portion of the survey that's encompassed within the Olympus Gold project. So as you can see, the survey is really providing top-notch exploration resources available to the public. All of this data is available online for anybody that is interested. And, if anybody needs links, again, please just ask at the end and we can provide that. So now I'm going to pass it to Braden, and he's going to go over a little bit about the technical information and a bit more in-depth geology within the, first going over the Slave Craton and then the Olympus project itself.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Rick. I'll need you to point to what I'm talking about, though.
Yes, gotcha.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'll just share, well, more or less the quick and dirty, broader geological and structural features of the Olympus Gold Project. So here we're just quickly zooming out for a second and looking at the regional map of the Slave Craton, compiled by Stubley et al. So yeah, as you can see, the main prominent feature that you can see is that the Olympus Gold Project is located along this major north-south trending imbricated crustal scale fault system that extends all the way from Great Slave Lake all the way up to the Arctic Ocean. So next slide, please. So yeah, so the Olympus project is underlain by the Archean Point Lake Greenstone Belt, which comprises an older gneissic granitoid basement complex to the west, juxtaposed to a mafic volcanic package and younger sin orogenic conglomerates. But overall, it's dominated by turbiditic rocks of the Contoito Formation. Yeah, so one of the main structural attributes that you can notice while looking at this geological map is the faults in the Olympus Gold Project area. They define a series of repeated easterly facing structural panels such that the east side of each fault represents a deeper stratigraphic and presumably structural level than the west side. Previous mapping has outlined up to 4 deformation events. However, only the first 2 are associated with major folding events. These folding events typically form dome and basin interference patterns, more noticeable in the western Contoito Formation outlined in the oxide facies BIF inter. However, the folding in the eastern portion of the Olympus project seem to be highly affected by the 2 north trending faults on either side of the faint red polygon drawn, which actually represents the Cordiorite metamorphic domain. So here the kilometric scale folds are transposed by these faults and mimic their geometry, likely representing a high strain corridor. And the majority of the gold showings are found within this high strain corridor associated with the BIF. So for the purposes of the rest of my little spiel here is I'll put a little bit more emphasis on this eastern section of the Olympus project area, as this is where the majority of the drilling and exploration work has been done so far. I just want to go to the next slide. So as Drake mentioned in the introduction there, the Olympus Gold Project has many similarities with the Lupin gold mine. Especially in the eastern portion of the property, which, like I just mentioned, represents a high strain corridor, constrained by those 2 major north trending faults. Metamorphic isograds are displaced westward by these faults, suggesting that these faults are steep reverse faults representing splays of an imbricated major crustoscale fault zone, which is a critical attribute to the formation of orogenic gold deposits. Like Lupin, Olympus East is hosted in lower amphibolite facies Contoito silicate and sulfide facies BIF. Gold mineralization is associated with arsenopyrite, lowlandite boundaries within late quartz carbonate veins and replacing BIF along the margins of veins. Also like Lupin, D3 deformation is associated with shearing along major faults and limbs of folds, allowing for more shearing and enhanced mineralized fluid flow to develop along the kilometric scale limbs of the BIFs during D3 deformation at Olympus. Let's go to the next one. So this table is, most of the information from this table is compiled from a study made in 1993 by Ford and Duke. They studied 5 different BIF-hosted gold deposits hosted in the Slave Craton, which included the Tree Prospect and the Lupin gold mine. As you can see, the host rocks, thermal overprint, alteration assemblages, location of siting of gold, all these features are pretty consistent with Lupin. Also, one important note is that gold occurs dominantly at the arsenopyrite lowlandite green boundaries, exactly where it was observed at Lupin in these late quartz carbonate veins. So this has significant implications for gold recovery and potentially down the road usage of nearby mill infrastructure. Perfect. Yeah, so this all has implications on moving forward in targeting. So one of the key observations that we made last summer was at the flag showing. So this is a picture of a trench, which still had some decent exposure. And what we notice is there's this really, really tight folding of the hostic section of the BIF. And you get these mineralized shear veins forming within the turbidite portion along the transposed limbs of the BIF. So it's likely that what we see at the scale could be representative at a larger scale. So again, just kind of going back to the Lupin comparison, the tectonically thickened BIFs within large-scale fold hinges are ideal sites for brittle fracturing in intense gold-bearing quartz veining to develop. But kind of going back to the schematic, at the Olympus project, D3 deformation is associated with shearing along major faults and limbs of folds, like we see here, and allowing for, again, more mineralized veining to occur along the kilometric scale limbs of the BIFs. And yeah, just to reiterate what was said earlier, so the high resolution magnetic survey has helped outline over 130 kilometers of untested BIF stratigraphy in the Olympus project area and helped us define multiple untested BIF fold hinges and sheared limbs. So this is, the first regional high resolution data set available across the property, which enhances the exploration advantage and potential success rate moving forward. So yeah, that's about it for me on that.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Braden. And now we're going to jump into kind of some opportunities within the Northwest Territories and kind of the old adage of timing is everything, right? So on the left-hand side, we have a graph of percent of regional claims relative to the overall land package or overall area within a territory or province. And so we could see that the Northwest Territories is significantly underclaimed relative to basically any other province or territory. So the potential to find a district scale kind of tier 1 asset is, it is of high potential within the Northwest Territories just because it has been significantly overlooked over the years. And there's almost a stigma there where because it's so far north, it's maybe too costly, but I mean, like there's lots of projects going on in Nunavut right now that don't seem to have that same stigma. So we thought that getting into the Northwest Territories was a really good idea to be kind of ahead of that staking curve because there's opportunity with that, right? And if we're gonna do a correlative staking rush, we could see what's happened in the East Coast with Newfoundland and Labrador and Nova Scotia, right? You could see most of that area has been staked up. And if you can imagine being ahead of that curve, the amount of potential that that is available, right? And then on the right-hand side, it is basically amount of claims given out per year. So in 2015, 16, 17, there's a pretty, it was pretty understaked, right? There wasn't a lot of activity going on, and then 2019 and 20 it picked up, and 2018 and 19 it picked up, and 2020 it was suppressed again. But that was because of COVID. But just as a schematic for the amount of land that we staked as the Olympus project, it's roughly highlighted by this green square relative to the overall land mineral claims given out in 2020. So there is a lot of potential up there, and certainly worth looking at, especially with the government grants and kind of services available. So to go over a little bit of history about the Northwest Territories, it was founded on mining. So Yellowknife was founded on gold in 1934, and today the Northwest Territories is Canada's biggest diamond producer. responsible for about 1/10 of the global output. Mining is the largest private sector employee of First Nations in the region and contributes to a little over 30% of the Northwest Territories GDP. The Con and Giant mine produced about 16 million ounces of gold in the Yellowknife Greenstone Belt, and we could see that there's increased activity in the area with the Seabridge's Courageous Lake deposit, Goldterra Yellowknife City Gold deposit, or project I should say, and Nighthawk Gold's Colmac deposit, and hopefully we'll be on that list one day, but there is an increase in activity in the area. And then with supportive government funding, the Mining Incentive Program, or MIP, is a Prospector grant that offers up to $25,000 to any geologist or prospector that's curious about undertaking a project in the territories. So, you look on the historical databases, you find areas of prospectivity, and then you kind of come up with a thesis or an exploration model as to why you should be exploring in that area. And you put together a budget up to $25,000 and a timeline in which you're going to complete the work. And then you can apply for that. And it is a competitive process, but if successful, then you'll be able to spend that money within the territories and carry out your exploration program. So, it's not risk-free, but it is almost a risk-free way of both testing out your skills for creating an exploration model and then carrying that out. And, there's a lot of upside. So there's a huge amount of potential there. And we do know that the MIP is one of the better grants, if not the best grant, depending on what you're looking for in Canada. So I certainly encourage anybody who's interested to check that out or talk with myself or Landon Powell, who is the kind of the coordinator of that program. And then there's also corporate grants. So it's a MIP corporate section. And so that covers up to 50% of exploration expenditures to a maximum of $200,000. So, if you carried out a $400,000 exploration program and you made a good enough kind of proposal that you should get an additional $200,000 or half of that $400,000, then you can be funded for that. So not only is it prospectors and geologists, but it's also corporate grants as well. And then the increased amount of geophysical surveys being flown in the NWT. So there is proposed kind of areas for more geophysical surveys to be flown. And again, all that data will be public information, and you can kind of utilize that. And I mean, it's a huge expense save right there. As we talked about before, the development of the Slave Geological Province Access Corridor, a 413-kilometer all-weather road, which will connect up to the border of Nunavut, and then hopefully connect to a road in Nunavut that takes it to in the Bathurst Inlet, where they have the proposed deep-sea port going. So the infrastructure plans within the next 10 years are pretty impressive in this area and are going to be kind of paramount in developing the North as a whole in terms of mineral exploration. And then there's multiple lines of government support with engaging with First Nations and filing for land use permits. So I know Mark Patty and Mike Byron, they were, hugely helpful in kind of showing us how we should approach engaging with Indigenous organizations. It's just because we've never done any of this before, right? So having that kind of support line and the ability to have one-on-one conversations is extremely beneficial. And again, highly recommend the opportunities that are available in the NWT. So a highlight summary of the Olympus project itself. So, we are a district scale, 12,500 hectare continuous mineral claim package. We have 17 historical gold showings and one new showing discovered in 2019. We have similar geology and structural complexity as the Yellowknife Greenstone Belt, which produced is a historic producer of 16 million ounces of gold. And then we have similar mineralization to the Lupin gold mine, who produced 3.4 million ounces of gold. We have a pre-43-101 estimate at the tree showing of 121,000 ounces of gold at 6.86 grams per ton. And we have the kind of the immediate extension of the Ren lease pre-43-101 estimate offered through the Grizz target. And we have 130 kilometers of untested BIF stratigraphy. And these include both fold hinges and transposed limbs. And we have grab samples documented on the property up to 205, 180, 32, 26, 19.8 grams per ton gold. And additionally, we have 1,487 and 725 grams per ton silver, with a large area of untested ground and the ability to expand surface sampling, trenching, and drilling. So that's the overview of the Olympus project itself. I don't know, Attila, did you want to start with any questions on that and then go over some pictures, or how did you want to do that?
No, give us the pictures right now. Let's see some nice photos.
Sure, yeah. So this is at the base camp that we had. So this is flying in with Air Tindi, and this is what we called Olympus Mountain, and that was kind of the idea behind Olympus Gold, because when you hike up there and get a view of Point Lake, it's pretty stunning. And this is both us, Air Tindi, and a team from Peterson's Point Lake Lodge, which is a fishing lodge about 50 kilometers down lake from us. And we rented the boat and motor from them, and 2 outpost camps. They were hugely valuable in kind of making our life a little bit easier up there and kind of transporting us around. There's just another picture of the float plane and the scenery. There's Brayden. That was in 2019. So in 2019 we got there, and the float plane actually couldn't get on shore. So we had to, first thing we had to do was, take our pants off, jump in the water, and get all our gear to shore right away. So it was a good experience in the north.
And then quickly realized that there's no trees up there to start a fire.
Yeah.
To dry off.
Yeah, the first thing we printed kind of double of every map, and so Braden's carrying the gear back and forth, and I'm kind of freaking out because it's like, okay, I got to get a fire going because he's freezing cold and making that sacrifice, and there's no trees. So the first thing I start doing is taking old maps and start crumpling them up to make a fire, and it was trial by fire, that's for sure. And so this is the outpost camps that we rented from Peterson's Lodge there. So they're just grain silos. They're bear proof, which is pretty necessary up there because you have you do have grizzlies up there. Here's the boat that we had, and just a beautiful backdrop to run an exploration program out of. Another one there.
So when you say you rented these, so how does that work? So these are mobile and they're being flown in wherever you want it to be, or?
No, so they were already there actually. So Peterson's Lodge had outpost camps kind of around the area. And so, so we saw it on an old map, and we contacted them and we asked them how much it would be to rent one of those as opposed to staying in a tent for 14 days, right? And so, we felt a lot safer in there. It was certainly more dry than a tent. And,
okay.
Right. And they actually had solar panels up there too with inverters, so we could charge all our gear. It was pretty. Nice.
I think they installed them like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's not for prospectors in general, right? It's more for, I don't know, fisher, a hiker.
Yeah,
fishing. Yes.
Yeah, or for them that just kind of want to get away from the lodge and spend a couple days out there. Yeah.
Tourists wanting to see the Northern Lights, probably.
Yeah. That's inside one of the silos there. So we have, it doesn't look like much, but I'm telling you, up there it's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's the 3 stars.
Yeah, we had lights. Oh, there's driving the boat with a nice backdrop anyway. There's Braden there. Adris was our field assistant. That's Adrian, or Braden's good friend from childhood, and then driving the boat in the back there. There's Braden in the helicopter that we rented. And so this is giving, this is an aerial photo just showing, some of the topography around there. So there is kind of large swaths of swamp. So that geophysical survey really does come in handy when you're dealing with things like this, because it's not necessarily, there could be areas without outcrop around it, right? So that's huge. But you look in the distance and there is a large amount of outcrop, but you do have these kind of low-lying swamp areas that you have to deal with. This is more of an example of an outcrop heavy area, but yeah, if people are wondering, what the topography is like, or what the traversing is like, this is pretty standard up there. It is rather hilly. There is elevation changes, and you're dealing with both swamp and outcrop, so it's fun walking. I'll say that. This is just another example of that.
No, and it's not flat at all.
Yeah, no. This is Flo carrying our pickets there. So up in the Northwest Territories as a whole, there is no map staking. So everything has to be done on foot or in a helicopter, right? So you actually have to put the claim post in the ground yourself, get the claim registries from the land use department, and then physically stake it. So there is that aspect up there. And if you're willing to do the work, it's great, because then you don't have anybody staking online and taking all the land without ever being there. So if you don't mind carrying some pickets and going for 20-kilometer hikes, then it's okay. There's just a nice backdrop there. Yeah, this is so on top of when we were staying in those grain silos, there was a couple days where we had to travel so far inland that it really didn't make sense to go back and forth. So we took our camp set up in tents with us and kind of hiked inland. And this is just one of the scenes at night. It's just super beautiful up there. There's Flo making some dinner. Just kind of hanging out.
How many hours of daylight did you have when you were up there?
Oh, it was pretty normal. We were there in August, so I would say like
18
10
to
hours.
20.
Yeah, it's a pretty normal day, to be honest. It's not really until September where it starts dropping pretty heavily, and then you gotta.
It was getting dark around midnight, I think so.
Yeah.
And
'Cause we were
darkish.
in the boat at 11 o'clock at night, and it was at 11 o'clock it was time to go back, but it wasn't. We could still navigate on water.
Oh, you can do a pretty long field day then. It's good.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah. Yeah. There was one field day. Braden and I did a 24-hour drive. 24 straight hours.
It was our first travel.
Yeah, it was like 25 kilometers. I think Braden had like 80 pounds of pickets on his back, and it was intense. And you know what? We did it all on a bag of fuzzy peaches. That was our early food. It's pretty ridiculous. But yeah, so this is one of the trenches at the showings, and there's Braden taking a few pictures, and then Adris in the background there. So just to give it, people an idea, these things are pretty easy to miss. So when you're going into the field, you have to know specifically where you're going, because one, you're on foot, so any distance covered is valuable, and also critical that you don't, you're not messing up your directions or anything, because it's pretty easy to miss something like this, right?
Not many landmarks out there, so.
What's that, sorry?
Not many landmarks out there.
No, not at all. Yeah. And so this is another trench here, and this is at the flag showing, which is that's Point Lake right there.
Mm-hmm.
But to go back like on the fact of like the showings, there is actually more outcrops than I would initially thought. First, I was kind of like worried about like having like just swamp everywhere and having hard time to find like any relevant outcrops. And actually, no, there's pretty good coverage. There's a lot for mapping and prospecting.
Yeah,
It's a lot to cover.
Yeah. So there's a picture. We were doing a lot of the staking on the shoreline by boat, and so there's Flo, putting the picket in, and
I think this one would
bear protection there. There's really good fishing up there.
Wow.
So that took us about 5 minutes to catch, and I'm pretty sure every 5 minutes after that we could have caught another one. So pretty phenomenal spot to be. We did get attacked by a grizzly. So in that picture with the tent, we got out of the tent in the morning, and Flo saw in the distance that there was a grizzly bear out there, and so that was a little concerning. I mean, it doesn't look too big from where it is, but it did cross the river, and it did charge at us. So it was pretty intense. We had to pack up everything that we had really quick and get back out of there and get to the boat, because it wasn't coming to say hi, right? So we had to leave our tent. We left our food. left our laptops, pretty much everything behind because it happened so quick, and we didn't get back to that spot for 2 full days. So there is something to be said about being prepared to encounter those kind of wildlife in the north. And
yeah, that being said, the whole next day we were just preparing, basically getting a person that carries the ammo and practicing loading it in and just shooting rounds and aiming. Ready to try to get back all our gear from the camp there. So.
Yeah, we were going to war for sure. Yeah, there's a moose. There is quite a few moose up there too, actually. 2019 we didn't see any, but 2020 we saw a few. There's a nice caribou. They get pretty close. They're massive animals. That's on me and Braden. That was I was taken at 3 a.m. in 2019, so that's probably after maybe 20 kilometers of hiking there, and I don't know, I think you can tell that we're pretty out of it. But yeah, thanks for listening to the project there and hearing a bit about the story, and we'd love to answer any questions that you have about the actual project itself or any services that the NWT offers. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed.
Yeah, thanks guys. This was awesome. Yeah. Well, I guess, yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of questions here. Actually, we received a few and have a few topics in mind. But yeah, I encourage everyone to still use the chat function there at the bottom if they have anything they'd like to ask. But yeah, I guess one of the questions is what's next? So what do you guys want to do with the project? So what would be sort of the next steps that you'd like to do that you think would really advance the project? And I don't know how much you can talk about it, but I understand, you are also in discussions with certain groups that might option the property, which would be obviously excellent news as well. But yeah, so what is your thinking?
Yeah, so after getting out of the field and kind of, doing our mapping and sampling program, we did a very thorough dive of the historical data. And I can't kind of stress that enough, to where doing that historical data compilation is very important, because you never know what someone's already done for you, and you just kind of have to find it and digitize it, right? And so that was really the first step after getting out of the field. That was really critical to bringing the whole story together. And so once that was done, we had enough ammo to go at a corporate presentation. And yeah, we've given it to a number of people, and we're in conversations right now with a group, and that's kind of all we could say on that. But there is certainly curiosity in projects like this, and yeah, it is fun doing this stuff, but at the end of the day, it is a business, right? And we are trying to progress ourselves as geologists and learning how to run these exploration programs, and and make money too, right? Because that's the point. So, but yeah,
I mean, on that note, yeah, definitely congratulations on considering this is your first sort of gig. Well, I mean, you did this sort of on the side while you had day jobs, so to speak. So basically, on your times off, putting this story together and going out staking it in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, that was hard.
And then hopefully actually getting to a deal where you can advance the project. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Now, I mean, one of the things that definitely strikes me is just, I find it pretty amazing that you can pick up claims that have this many showings and then actually drill hole intersections and historic resource. So, I mean, I like that you included those couple slides about the benefits of Northwest Territories, because that definitely, I mean, to me, I don't know many places, in Ontario or Quebec or some of the more explored areas where you could go in there and stake such a large land package with this many, high quality targets and existing historic resources in that. So, yeah, I mean,
this is rare.
can you maybe elaborate a little bit more on why you landed on the Northwest Territories, or what other jurisdictions that you consider, or what were some of your criteria, I guess, to identify what areas you want to stake and what jurisdiction?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll start off on that. Originally in 2019, we were looking at the East Coast, a professor of Drake and I was doing a postdoc with the GSC, and it was on basically a structural comparison from Newfoundland geology to the Abitibi in terms of the fault zone there. And I kind of got drawn to that and thought maybe there could be potential there that has been overlooked. But then we quickly looked at the claim map there, and everything was already staked. And that was like one of the main things that drew us to the Northwest Territories, because there's, this great funding opportunities, but there's almost nothing staked up there. So, and if you want to continue on that, Drake, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the amount of showings that are still up there and still available to stake, that we're kind of keeping our eye on too, to be honest, because there, like you said, there's not too many places available in which you can compile a land package this big and this many historical showings that include drilling at the same time, right? And significant drilling too, right? So, for those factors alone drew us to the territories. And then the mining incentive program, it was something that facilitated our ability to actually, act on those thoughts, right? Because without that, there's absolutely no way anybody would give, three guys that have never done it before money to go put an idea together, right? Like, kind of got to.
So explain us that a little bit more. So you're saying $25,000 per year per person. Is that what you can apply for? And then
per project.
Per project. Okay. So it's not like Drake can apply for the.
No, it is per person. Yeah, per person.
Okay, per person.
Yeah.
Okay. So Braden, in your case, like if you already got $80,000 worth of grants, that would have been over 2 or 3 years or something like that, or.
2 years. So Nova Scotia also offers pretty significant exploration grants, up to 25,000 as well. But it covers mostly analysis, whereas the NWT exploration grant covers a lot. Like a decent amount can go towards field gear, which you absolutely need up there. As with Nova Scotia, it's mostly analysis. So.
Mm-hmm. And then, so with these grants, so is the government asking to, retain any royalties on the properties, or is there any other kind of things?
Yeah, no, there's no. What you have to do is you have to do an interim report to state that the actual work has been completed or work completed to date, and to say that you're on budget or off budget, and then at the end of the program, you have to submit basically a work summary, a budget, and a report stating what you did and the results and kind of the interpretation of those results. Other than that, there is no royalty or ownership requirement that needs to be given to the NWT for this bursary.
So that report, how's that different from a usual assessment report that you would have to file anyways?
It's a little less stringent in terms of what you would have to do for an actual assessment report. It just doesn't have to be as detailed, and it's just not as strict as an assessment report. However, you can submit an assessment report if you have done enough work on the property as your kind of report to the mining incentive program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and then on those historic resources, for example, so you mentioned that the logs are available, but so the drill core or casings, would those be available for somebody to confirm it fairly easily, or what is the work that would be required, do you think, to really firm those up?
Well, in terms of drill core, we have to, because we couldn't find anything online, we have to kind of contact the survey. We've yet to do that just because there's been so many other things, but maybe there's drill core, but we haven't found any in the NWT library and in the remapping program they did in, I believe, 2015. So, it may or may not be there. Really not sure. But, when you have the data that we do have is the downhole logs, the assays, the color locations based off of the maps created by Giant Mine's Yellowknife. But the core, that would be phenomenal to have, and hopefully we can get our hands on it. But at this point, we don't know.
Yeah. No, here Mike just commented here that you know, the royalties and taxes and all that comes obviously once it turns into a mine. So yeah, they have obviously a long-term view that they don't want to hit you at the beginning when you're in the exploration stage. They're hoping that it's gonna turn into a mine, and that's when the taxes come and royalties. So yeah, no, that's a good comment. And he was also wondering what was the end of the grizzly story. So what happened to your field gear?
So, well, when he, you know, it came out as like Flo spotted it. We were all sitting in the tent and we were kind of having a slow morning, honestly, for the best that we were having a slow morning. And Flo got out of the tent and he's like, hey, I think I see a grizzly over there. He says it nice and calmly, right? And it's like, oh, like, really? You see a grizzly? Like, we, you know, that's not good, right? And so we put our boots on and we take a look, and there he is, you know, pacing back and forth on the other side of the river. And it's like, okay, we're all like, you know, we gotta start packing our stuff up now. Day's over, right?
An important thing to add is we just chugged pre-workout because we're having a super lazy morning, and we're just like, you got to go for this, you know, huge trav. So we're like, okay, let's get some pre-workout in us, and so we're good to go. So we're just getting jacked up on pre-workout when Flo mentions this, and then we all see it, and we're like rushing to get our stuff in our bag and whatnot. So.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. And so, you know, he was pacing back and forth for quite a while, and then he just kind of sat there and stared at us. And at that point, it was like, okay, he's got to make his decision whether or not to come. You know, we all decided that if he crosses that river, whatever we have in our hands and on our back, that's what we get, and we got to go, right? And so he goes down into the riverbank, and we lose him because it's about a 10-foot drop on our side, and so we can't see the bottom of the actual riverbank. Maybe for about 30 seconds, he's gone there, and then he pops up on the other side. As soon as he pops on the other side, he's just charging like as fast as he can. And like you always say it's like, oh yeah, I can handle a grizzly bear, this and that. And it's like, until you know, you don't even know how over it is, right? Like when you see that.
No, because he crossed the swamp. Like we just walked the day before. He was so slow to walk through that. And he was just running through like so fast. You're like, okay, I won't even try to run.
Yeah, it's like 20 seconds and he's on us, right? And so we grabbed the gun. I took a shot just to the right of him. That stopped him, and he turned around and he looked because the echo from the pellets, because it was double zero buckshot for the first one, and then there was a slug followed behind it. Took another shot, and again to the right of him, and because you know we didn't want to hit him, especially at that distance, right? And then on the second shot, he stood up on his hind legs, and it was like, oh yeah, let's go. And so we just put the bags on, and we got out of there, right? And you know we walked in kind of formation as fast as we could. And kind of like as safely as we could. And, you know, Flo was kind of keeping an eye on the bear, and we were looking for little nooks that we could back ourselves into in case he did kind of run up and corner us, so we can kind of take care of ourselves. But yeah, we got back to the boat, and then as Braden said, we practiced in how to handle ourselves up there, and then we came back 2 days later, and we got all our we got back to the site and never touched a thing. We had all our food, our tents, everything. So it was perfect. It was a really good learning opportunity with minimal risk, right? Or not minimal risk, but minimal repercussion. So, you know, it's one of those things that I would say that we're happy that it happened, because it allowed us to understand how dangerous it can be up there without losing too much on our end. So
yeah. And it also made us realize how fast you can move up there. We're about 4 kilometers inland. And on the way in, it took us, I don't know, 3.5 hours. But on the way out, when the grizzly bear was chasing us, it was like under an hour.
Yeah, we got it pretty quick.
Yeah, you can be fast.
You don't try to walk around swamps at that point. Yeah. So
yeah, I guess that brings me to so obviously operating up there, you need some extra safety or emergency preparedness, eh? So I don't know, like, did you guys what is it, sat phone, or you have some check procedures with your chopper pilots, or what are some of the things that you had to kind of think of that maybe in Ontario near your truck you wouldn't have to consider?
We had some end radio to communicate it between us. So,
and then we also had it's called the Garmin Inreach Explorer Plus, and so Instead of a sat phone, we use those because it uses the Iridium satellite base, and you could text basically anyone in the world. So, we had my sister lives in Yellowknife, so she was a checkpoint.
Okay.
So was a checkpoint.
Yeah, that's really handy.
Yeah, and then our parents, right? So we Bluetooth that to our phone, and we could text whomever we kind of deemed as, if you don't hear from us in 2 days, then maybe call some help, sort of thing. So we did have that line of communication, and as well, it comes with a live tracker. So if you give your kind of emergency contact the link to the Garmin, it'll bring you to a website, and it will live track you as you go, so they could see where you are kind of at all times. And then on top of that, it comes with, I believe it's $1 million or $2 million worth of insurance for emergency evacuation situations. So those are all funded through provided through the Garmin Inreach Explorer Plus. And we use that in lieu of sat phones because it's just a much cheaper and honestly pretty effective way to do it up there.
Oh, this is a must. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, and then you showed us some photos, but basically, how did you get around on the land package? It was always just basically hiking, or did you rent a float plane once in a while just to go from one place to the other, or that would be pretty expensive, I guess. So
it's mostly hiking. 2019 was all hiking, but this year we rented a boat from the lodge there, the fishing lodge across the lake.
Yeah.
So we're able to, get around on the lake and make our hikes a little bit shorter rather than walking around the lake.
Good, yeah. And Frank was wondering here whether did you have a drone, or do you think a drone would help you locating outcrops or mapping and those kind of things?
Yeah, I saw the question kind of passing through, and we had a drone. We didn't use too much for that purpose, but we use it, yes, for kind of try to define any kind of outcrops. But I think moving forward, in the futures, those tools, they come really handy, because sometimes it's really hard to justify. We have coordinates, you can see a mag anomaly, and if it's in the middle of the swamp, you're gonna walk 4, 5, 6 hours back and forth for nothing. And so that's kind of sometimes just to do a 2 or 3 kilometers, that can give us a good idea of what the ground looks like, and if there's any kind of exposure. And but yeah, so I think in a lot of now surface exploration, they use drone a lot for that. So
how are the topographic maps for the area? You had a pretty good idea of the topography and all that?
Once we got there.
No, yeah, not awesome, but
we only prepared so much, right? Yeah, no, the DEM, the digital elevation model provided by the survey there is great. But honestly, in 2019 with Braden and I, it was just, we didn't
surprisingly hilly.
Yeah, it is. It's not flat.
Yeah.
I have a couple more philosophical questions on prospecting from you guys. I'm just wondering on your thoughts. But so, where do you see the role of prospectors and guys like yourself and these projects, in modern exploration chain? Obviously this Canadian exploration so the chain used to be that prospectors are the first to come in, and then they sort of auction it off to juniors, and then it goes down the food chain like that. And so how do you feel of that continuation and sort of the role of prospectors nowadays?
Yes, honestly, that's essentially what we're doing out here is prospecting, right? So I think the role of prospectors might be changing a little bit, but certainly the need for prospectors might be increasing, right? So prospecting can be made easier through all of this online data, right? So by doing your historical data compilation prior to going in the field, that gives you a way better understanding of where the showings are, what you're expecting to see. So it's a tool that you can use in your repertoire. But In terms of the actual role of a prospector, I think it's equally, or if not more valuable than prior, right? Because these things are harder to come by, and you don't really learn how to do a lot of prospecting in school. And so, even for this exploration program that, that we, for 2022, 2021 summer, our kind of proposed model that we built up was to hire some prospectors with us and come along, as opposed to just field assistants, right? Because it's so valuable having someone that just has that eye for gold. And I mean,
well, yeah, it's a very specialized skill set, and I was chatting with Josh about that actually a couple of days ago, and we used to hire a lot of summer students to go out prospecting in the bush, and many times they didn't return really with anything, because a lot of geos don't necessarily have that eye for. I mean, they're good geologists, and they can identify rocks and minerals and whatnot, but you really need that special, sniffing out sulfide somehow, or being able to, I don't know if it's passion or just persistence or something like that, to really get into some showings. And yeah, oftentimes it's not actually the geos or the trained professionals. I guess it's the sort of there's a lot of prospectors out there that are just really good at what they're doing. And
absolutely, yeah. And I can attest to Flo, like Flo can attest to that. He's, one of the, obviously, Braden and I really enjoy Flo's personality and working with Flo, but one of the reasons why it was so key to have him there is because he's got that kind of nose for gold, and whatever it is, like, maybe you could speak a bit more about that, Flo.
Yeah, no, totally. It's
a Hawkeye, if you will.
It's just because most of my field, I would say, most of my I learned like everything in the field, but like honestly from prospectors and really experienced prospectors. I learned a lot about how to read kind of elevation and they're good to kind of like, they know if there is outcrop or there is no outcrop. That's a skill of like reading the terrain. They're really good for reading terrain. They're really good to also kind of like, even if they don't necessarily kind of know like the kinematic of like a shear zone or anything like that, they know when the rock has been deformed, when there is juice, when there is vein, where the vein looks nice. And sometimes there is no explanation for that. It's just because they've seen so many rocks, so many things. They kind of like they calibrate their eyes on something they know. And there's so many skills, like I would say, like in the field, like you have to learn from someone like who's been like 20 years experience like in the field, and learning from prospectors. I would say like that's how you become a good field geologist, because otherwise like so that's why I think in the future I think there is a bright future still for prospectors. They might need readjustment because obviously when everything is getting stake, now you have to kind of like learn a little bit the digital evolution of the aspect of the industry. That's something probably like older prospectors that have been kind of like, they could have. Like, I'm 34 and I'm having trouble with like computers and stuff. So I'm not judging like old prospector for that. But that's kind of thing sometimes kind of probably in the future I would say like kind of like
I totally agree. Yeah. So for prospectors to stay relevant in the industry, there's definitely some changes needed, but like we all know how the major companies, they haven't, they've really scaled back their grassroots greenfields exploration efforts, especially in the last, I guess, 10-20 years, and they're really relying on juniors to do that job. But then the junior funding is struggling a lot with of course, in the markets, there's a lot of competing industries now for the same high risk tolerant investor money. So the cannabis and tech industries, really soak up a lot of the funding that used to go to junior companies. So, with some of these challenges for the exploration companies, there might be really a sort of a renaissance for the prospectors, where some of the savvy prospectors that that do have the drones and they do have sort of access to, they can use these open, free accessible mag data and all the geological survey data
Yeah.
that's online available. If they're if they can take good use of that, then they can probably add a lot of value compared to previous operators or previous prospectors. So yeah,
Yeah. No, you're right. Like even like using like a tablet with like a easy GIS program, like kind of QGIS, and yes, with up to that, like using kind of drones. Those are kind of tools you can do a lot with that. That's really handy.
Yeah, exactly. So a couple more comments here. Dave Nickerson, he was commenting that he actually worked on the tree property almost 50 years ago. So
No
I saw
way.
that.
he's glad to see some renewed interest. So yeah,
That's
maybe
too
it's a
cool.
good opportunity for you guys to hook up with Dave and get some information from him.
Absolutely,
Maybe he remembers where exactly those trenches are or where the
Yeah, I would love to talk to Dave.
Awesome. Yeah, nice to meet you, Dave.
Yeah.
no, this is excellent. And yeah, I'm just looking through some of the other comments, but yeah, obviously lots of discussion here that your presentation has generated. Yeah, so I guess kind of wrapping up. So going forward, what's the plan for this dream team trio here? So you guys this is going to be a business model going forward that you're trying to look for other understaked, underexplored areas and pick up land packages like this and try to vend them off, or are you thinking of maybe forming your own company around these projects and sort of going on your own? Or I don't
That's
know if you can comment on that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
definitely keep
yeah.
going. I mean, there's no reason not to, right? There's still lots of land out there and
Yeah.
lots of discoveries to be made. But, for this one and for, I don't know what the future ones will say, but probably some sort of agreement where is some sort of option deal or an acquisition or something for this one. But, and then if we can get something, something in the future that we can run ourselves and that we can kind of sink our teeth into in terms of running our own exploration company. That, I mean, for me, that's the dream. I know Braden and Flo are super keen on that. Like, I mean,
Exactly. That is the dream, right? This is done in our spare time, right? So it just goes to show you how much we're interested in it.
Yeah.
Along with, other side projects and, full-time jobs. So
yeah.
absolutely, if, more to come, and yeah, so that's basically hit the nail on the head.
Perfect. Yeah, good luck to you guys. And yeah, I don't see any other questions here, but yeah, is there anything else that we haven't touched on and you guys want to share, or some other information that you
I don't know. I would say that if anybody wants any more information on any sort of government grants across Canada, I know Braden has extensive knowledge in the East Coast there. And in terms of in the NWT, please feel free to send us an email or contact the TILA or Ed or anyone in the SPDA kind of association to get a hold of us, because we'd be more than willing to kind of go through the process that we did and how to navigate these databases, right? Because it is a big learning curve to kind of understand each province's or each territory's database. So we do have a pretty good understanding of them now, and we'd love to help.
And, we're hoping that especially with making this video also available online, and you guys can maybe share also in the university and everything, we're really trying to encourage and so inspire other students that I mean, the way I see it is it's always nice to see some CEOs of companies go out there and present their pitch, but it's really inspiring to see some young geos like you guys going out there and doing such an awesome job, and it's a nice success story. So I think that's pretty inspiring for a lot of students. So we'll definitely try to make sure to spread the word. And yeah, I think your presentation definitely helps in that.
Appreciate that.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you guys. And maybe we can try, if everybody can go on mute, unmute themselves, maybe we can do a bit of an applause at the end.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. I'll take it. Yeah. Nice.
All right, thank you
Well
guys.
done.
Yeah.
Well done, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bring a whole bunch
Yeah.
more prospectors back.
We'll try.
Yeah, and thank you for the audience. Obviously, for bearing with us here with some glitches, but I think it ran pretty smoothly, and yeah, we're looking forward to the next one. So we're gonna try to aim for, again, once a month, usual time, and yeah, you guys set the bar pretty high for the next presentations. All right, take care, guys.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Nice meeting you guys.
Thank you, Ed, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody, for attending.
Yeah, take care.